Welcome, everyone, to this episode of My Golden Life. I'm Lisa Neller, your host. And today I have a fabulous guest. I'm so excited to introduce you to her. Her name is Julianne Miller, and she's a life, money, and management coach. And what we're going to talk about today is financial confidence and independence. And I'm going to start by giving a little bio, giving a little background on Julianne, and then we're going to let her tell her story. So, Julianne is an accredited financial counselor and coach who is dedicated to helping clients overcome financial obstacles so they can continue to grow. She makes money feel simple when we make progress, quick progress, in a short amount of time. She creates a plan for clients when they don't have one that they can follow that will help them pay down debt as quickly and easily as possible and start to effectively save for the things they want in life and stop stressing or feeling overwhelmed because their money will feel simple. So, Julianne, welcome to My Golden Life. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Oh, thank you, Lisa. I'm excited to be here.
Awesome. All right. Well, let's start with how you got here. What inspired you to become a financial coach? And why is financial confidence and independence important to you?
I got started when I used to work in a field that was very public facing. Saw a lot of people who would come in every day. And I realized that not everybody has the same tools for managing their money. Either they don't have the education or they don't have the decision making process to manage their money every day. Specifically, there was one client who came in who was had a spouse who took care of all the bills, and unfortunately, he passed away, and she didn't know how to do any of it. So she was trusting strangers to help her with those decisions and that process. And so it really meant a lot to me that other women would know how to do that or and have the confidence to be able to do it on their own.
Wonderful. Okay, well, let's define financial confidence. I mean, how do you define it and what is it? Why is it a crucial skill for women in midlife and beyond? And any women really, but I mean, this
Mhm.
is, women for this podcast is for women in the second half of life. So,
Oh,
but
absolutely.
yeah,
I think to me, financial confidence is when someone can handle the basics of their finances, being able to pay the bills, being able to make decisions with their money, or even knowing where to go to get the help they need if they have questions about, making a big decision or, making a big purchase. It's knowing those things and then even striving to want more. It's okay to get through life and pay the bills, but what else do you want to do with your money? Do you want to save? Do you want to retire? Do you want to go on traveling? And so having the confidence helps you make those decisions so you can do those kinds of things, especially for those of us who are older. We start to look at some of those things. And so when you're confident in making those decisions already, then you can start to look at what do I need to do to free up some money so I can go on the trip of a lifetime? What do I need to adjust when all of a sudden my adult child comes home and we're sharing the household expenses? Or what do I need to adjust when I have an elderly parent that now I'm also responsible for? When you are confident and stable with your money, that really helps you look at those decisions in a different way.
and it sounds like intention has a lot to do with it. So I imagine that you teach people to bring intention into their lives and into their financial world, so they do have more control, right?
Yes,
That makes
intention. And I also like small steps because sometimes people think, oh, I can't do anything until I can do all of it. And I like to teach that no, you can start out with small steps to get to where you're going. And yes, that intention is part of those small steps. You take this small step, work your way up, and then you take your next step.
Okay, so so we're going to get to the steps in a minute. But what are some common financial challenges or misconceptions that women in the second half of life face? I know you sort of kind of mentioned some of them, but
Mhm.
anything else that comes to mind?
Certainly, people think, oh, well, I can never get out of debt. My debt is too high. Debt's relative, it's different for everybody. Your income is different for everybody. And so, what is easy for one person might be harder for another person. So, we look at, getting out of debt and how you can do that depending on what you have. Um, Retirement, of course, is another one. A lot of people think, oh, I can never retire. But it's looking at the budget, rearranging the budget, making room in the budget, things like that. And we talked about aging parents, and so there's a lot of different things. Divorce is another one that a lot of I just read in Her Money that they January, February, March are the busiest months for divorce, which I
Mm.
had never learned before. And so that upsets, your money and your plan for your money and what you had, what you were looking to do with that. So you have to relook at the budget and say, okay, what do I need to change and what do I need to do?
So I hear the word budget, and I think a lot of
I
people
use
are.
that, but
I think no, I think it's a great thing, and I think people are very resistant to that. Do you find that people are resistant to creating a budget, and if so, why?
they are. So they are. I definitely run into that. And I think it's because it has such a negative connotation because they're often struggling with that budget and they either don't know how to make it work for them. And I'm very specific on that, how it works for them. Um, they think there's this one perfect budget that should be used for everyone across the world, and that's not the case at all. And so that's part of our conversations is what's working, what's not working, what can we change, and how does it apply to your life.
And I imagine that there's just some either habit breaking or habit building with this because I don't personally have a budget, but I am really good at questioning my purchasing decisions. I
Mm-hmm.
don't typically, I mean, they say that most people buy things emotionally, like they just do because they want them and it makes them feel
Right.
good and all that. And I really try hard to examine that. Like when I'm purchasing something, do I really need this? How's it going to make me feel? Is it going to help me in some way? Does it would it put me in debt to pay for this thing? And
Mm-hmm.
if it's going to put me in debt, I would say, no. But not a lot of people have that control, that
Right.
self-control. They'll just spend emotionally.
Mm-hmm.
They'll buy whatever they want, and then pretty soon they're in debt when they didn't really need to be in the first place,
Mm-hmm.
right?
What I'm finding with our age, the golden life age,
Yeah.
is that a lot of people are just living their lives. And so they're not even putting any thought into it, whether it's emotional or not necessarily. Um, they're going out to eat and not thinking about it because it's a busy life and they've got a lot to do. And going out to eat is quicker and easier than eating at home. They're spending on the grandchildren because, that's just what you do. You love them and you spend on them.
Mhm.
You're helping out your adult kids that are home. Well, they don't have a job yet, so we're going to help them out with their cell phone bill and their car insurance bill. Well, car insurance is pretty darn expensive, you
Yep.
know? So that's great that you want to do that, but how is that hurting your finances and what you want to plan for your future?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
You can't give away the farm, right? Like
No,
you have
can't give away
to
the farm. Yeah. So,
inspire
so
them
we
to
talk
do.
about, we talk about boundaries. We talk about, emotional spending. We talk about that intention, being intentional, and disciplined. Discipline
Uh-huh.
is another one, you know. So, so we try to make that more positive, making the budget more positive by looking at it in a different way.
Yeah, I imagine it's like going on a diet or like changing your diet where, you're not eating quite as much or whatever, but you have these cravings, you know,
Mhm.
and you have, and you want to act on the craving, and then you have to really stop yourself and ask yourself. So tell me, so let's get to the steps now. What are the first steps someone could take to start building their financial confidence?
A lot of times people are not aware of how much they're spending or what they're spending their money on. So, one of the first steps that they can do is simply take one of their bank statements or go into their bank account and look to see where they're spending their money. Now, yes, they're going to say, oh, yeah, I know I'm going out, but how much are you going out? What is that costing you? And is that worth it to you? I had someone who didn't realize how much she was giving, to her friends, to her family, to her church. And it turns out she was spending hundreds every month. So that was eye-opening for her. And yes, she wanted to give, but it was impacting their budget in a negative way. So we had to look at, okay, if you want to do that, how are you going to adjust other things around that, to be able to accomplish that? So that's one step, actually two steps there. So clarity of the numbers, and
Mhm.
then also, looking at that in terms of your entire budget and whether or not you want to keep it the way it is or adjust, to make it fit.
Well, and I think also like you could add like saving, like you don't have to save a lot every month. You could just put away a little bit, right? And just start getting in
Mhm.
the habit of it.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, I always like to start my favorite for me is 10%. What can you do 10% of? Is it
Oh,
savings 10%? Are you cutting back 10%? You know, whenever we're talking about those kinds of changes, I like 10% is a nice number because it's a little bit of a push for people, but
yeah.
not so much so that they feel totally uncomfortable with it.
Yeah. So how do financial confidence and financial independence complement each other?
I think when you feel financially confident, it gives you that ability to make the decisions or find the right answers to make decisions that work for you. For example, I had a client that when she had come to me, she we had to work a lot on her debt and a lot on her budget. Once we got through some initial stages, she also needed a car. So that she was concerned that was going to add to her budget. But she was able, because we had worked on her confidence and knowing what to do with the numbers, she felt confident walking into the car place to sit down and have a conversation with them and negotiate the cost of the car and negotiate the terms of the loan. And so she didn't have to depend on anybody else to help her do that. It was completely 100% her confidence with where she stood, knowing how much she could afford, and then being able to walk in there and have that confidence to negotiate for, some good terms.
That is an excellent example. And that feeling of independence had to be great for her, right? Like she
Yeah.
had
Oh,
to
absolutely.
be
She
so
was so
proud of
excited.
herself.
Yeah, she was incredibly excited. She was texting me, guess what I just did? At first I thought, uh-oh. But then it was fantastic. She did a great job. Yeah,
Awesome.
very excited.
So how can women approach investing? Like if they've never done it before or feel intimidated by it?
I think investing is personal for everyone. I think as a coach, I like to see my clients get to what I consider a stable um, growth in their finances before they start to invest. Um,
Hmm.
Usually working on paying off the debt, working on some savings to start to build up and covering, your annual expenses. But then from there, they can look to do things on their own, or they can look for outside help. There are financial advisors that can, sit down and work with them. Um, Coaches can help them just understand the basics of what kinds of accounts there are, but it's really the financial advisor who takes them to the next level. There are a lot of online platforms that are do it yourself. Those are okay to get started. But if you really want to plan and maneuver and change things around, I think that's when an advisor can be helpful as well.
Totally. Um, yeah, that makes sense. So how can women in midlife and beyond model financial independence and confidence for younger generations?
Oh, let's just as we're doing right now, talking about money would be the first one. A lot of people are, um, when they're not doing well with their money, they're embarrassed and they're stressed, so they don't talk about it. Um, they don't necessarily teach their children beyond um, the basics. And some people don't have the knowledge, the formal knowledge, so they think they're not qualified to teach their children or to teach other people about money. So I think it's important that, again, when they have that confidence, they can share that with others. And it doesn't have to be, it can be your kids, it can be a nephew, a niece. If you have the opportunity to do it, I really wish more people would do that. Because any little tidbits that you can share with the younger generation is really going to propel them forward so they understand more.
Yeah, I wish this was a subject that was taught in school. I really do. I think from elementary on, it would behoove the world to educate people on what money is, how
Oh,
it
absolutely.
works,
Mhm.
and what it looks like to overspend and to, you know, all that kind of stuff.
Mhm.
So
Yep.
yeah. And I think if, you're listening to this podcast and you are someone who is financially savvy or whatever, and you can find a way to educate a younger person, I am kind of all about that. Like generativity,
Mhm.
passing on your wisdom to the next generation would be a great thing to do.
Yep,
Um,
absolutely. Mhm.
so Julianne, if you could give one piece of advice to women who want to feel more empowered financially,
Mhm.
what would it be?
No matter who it is, don't be afraid to ask questions with someone else if you need answers or need help. A lot of people are afraid to ask for help, whether it's overcoming a financial problem, whether it's learning how to handle their finances, whether it's learning how to grow their finances. A lot of people are afraid to ask for help. And there are so many resources out there, whether it's books, whether it's counselors, advisors. There's a lot of, even your therapists and social workers, they can point you in the right direction if you need either help with your finances or learning more about it. There's a lot of help out there, but it can be difficult to find, and you just have to keep looking and keep asking.
Well, I think you're one of those resources. And before we get to your information, I just want to share. So my daughter's a therapist, speaking of therapists, and she doesn't do this anymore, but she used to use an app and it was a budgeting app.
Mhm.
And she used it religiously. If she got gas, she'd put it in. If she got groceries, she'd put it in. Do you have any recommendations for apps or anything like that that people could get started with?
Oh, there's quite a few on the market, and they've really come a long way. I personally have used YNAB, which is You Need a Budget. So that's one that's on the market.
YNet. You need YNUB. Is that what it's called?
YNAB,
YNAB.
I'm sorry, YNAB. You Need a Budget.
You need a budget. Okay,
Yep.
YNAB.
So that's a common one.
Okay.
There's also Monarch, which is another one. That's a real nice one.
Monarch.
Yep.
Okay.
Monarch is one, just like the butterfly. Um,
Excellent. And you just go in there and you put like you can put your income and your expenses just kind of like a
mhm, you
almost like a
can.
spreadsheet, but not quite.
Yep. Oh,
Yeah.
they're much different now. Yeah, much
Oh,
different than the spreadsheet now. Um, a lot of them, they really try to guide you towards more mindful spending and mindful decisions based on the information that you see. So some of those are really nice. But those are the two that come to mind, top of mind.
all right. Very good. Well, for those of you listening, Julianne, again, is a financial coach. She is a resource. So someone who could help you really dig into your current reality and some of your habits and help you change habits and increase your financial net worth, your assets,
Mhm.
just by reviewing, what you've got going on currently, and then she can give you tips for improving your financial situation. So, Julianne, where can people find you?
Well, I have a website, which is lifemoneymanagement.com. You can also find me on LinkedIn and Facebook, both personal under my personal name, Julianne Miller, and also under Life Money Management on Facebook. So those are the main areas where I hang out.
And they
And of
can
course, I
find
have a
you.
newsletter.
Oh, good. Okay.
Yep, I
So
have a
that's
newsletter.
probably
So
helpful.
anybody, that's where people can really get to know me is through my newsletter. And so that's an option as well.
And where can they find your newsletter?
I have it's on my webpage, so they can
Okay.
find it there. And also, I have a little checklist that if somebody wants the checklist, it will ask them if they want to opt into the newsletter through the checklist.
Oh, the checklist is a nice gift. Okay. So that could be really
Yep.
helpful for people.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Julianne, anything else you want to add before we go?
Oh, I just want to encourage people, to continue to grow and learn and make money part of their, part of a positive part of their life and not something that they need to worry about and be stressed about.
Yeah, it's just a thing, right? It's just a
Yeah.
tool.
Thank
We
you so
we
much for having me. It's a great conversation today.
Oh yeah, thank you so much for being my guest, Julianne. And so listeners, thank you so much for tuning in. I appreciate you. And please, if you need a financial coach, look Julianne Miller up. She gave you all, I will put the links in the show notes, of course. And thanks for listening today. We'll see you next time.
Thank you.